My mother lied about me for years. Then my secret recordings went public. Before we begin the story, make sure to subscribe to our channel and never miss more incredible stories every day. I grew up wondering why people looked at me the way they did. Teachers seemed cautious around me. Relatives kept their distance, whispering when they thought I couldn't hear. Neighbors would give tight smiles, but their eyes carried judgment I couldn't understand. It wasn't until I was 16 that I overheard the truth. My mother, the woman I thought was my protector, had been poisoning my name for years. I caught her one night at a family gathering, speaking in a hushed but urgent voice to my aunt. "She can't be trusted," she said. "Always lying. Always trying to manipulate people. I worry she might even hurt someone one day." I froze in the hallway, my chest tight. Hurt someone? I'd never even been in a fight. The lies spread like wildfire. By the time I pieced it together, she'd painted me as a selfish, unstable child, someone who couldn't be relied on. Relatives pulled away. Friends' parents didn't want their kids around me. Teachers treated me like a ticking time bomb. And when I tried to defend myself, it only made me look guilty, like I was protesting too much. At home, the gaslighting was worse. If I confronted her, she'd tilt her head, eyes wide with false concern. "Sweetheart, you're imagining things. You always twist my words." If I cried, she told everyone I was dramatic. If I stayed quiet, she told them I was hiding something. It was a trap I couldn't escape. My own mother had turned me into a villain in a story she controlled. For years, I carried the shame, the anger, the isolation. I wanted to scream the truth, but no one would believe me over her. She was charming, generous, the perfect mother in public. I was the broken child. But one night, while wiping my tears, an idea hit me. If no one would believe my word, maybe they'd believe hers. That was the night I hid my first recorder under the kitchen table. I didn't know it then, but those secret recordings would change everything. And when they finally went public, they would burn my mother's empire of lies to the ground. The night I planted that recorder, my hands wouldn't stop shaking. It was just a cheap little device I bought online with money I'd saved from babysitting. But to me it felt like a weapon, my only weapon. I tucked it under the kitchen table, hidden between the wooden beams where no one would think to look. My heart pounded, so hard I thought she might hear it beating when she walked in. At first, there was nothing. Just the sound of her footsteps, the clatter of plates, the hum of the refrigerator. Hours passed, and I wondered if I'd risked everything for nothing. But then, as if the universe itself wanted me to have proof, the phone rang. "Hi, Linda," she said sweetly, her tone syrupy. It was my aunt again. I pressed my ear against the wall, straining to catch every word. Yes, she's still pretending to be the perfect child. But you know the truth. She lies about everything. Sometimes I think she believes her own stories. It's sad, really. One day, it's going to catch up with her. My stomach twisted. She wasn't even angry. She sounded almost amused, like it gave her pleasure to carve me into a monster one rumor at a time. Then came the line that sealed it. "If she ever tells you I mistreat her, don't believe it. You know how manipulative she is. She'll do anything for attention." I wanted to storm into the kitchen and scream, "You're the liar. You're the manipulator." But I didn't. I sat there, tears burning my eyes, letting the recorder soak in every poisonous word. When the call ended, she hummed to herself, oblivious. I stayed silent, my chest tight with a strange mixture of pain and triumph. For the first time, I had proof, not just my word against hers. That night, lying in bed with the recorder clutched to my chest, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: hope. But hope is dangerous, because the moment I started collecting more recordings, I realized just how deep her web of lies went. And the closer I got to the truth, the more I feared she'd discover my secret. After that first night, I became obsessed. The recorder felt like a lifeline, a thin thread tethering me to the possibility that one day, someone would finally see the truth. I started small, slipping it under the couch cushions when she gossiped on the phone, hiding it behind books on the shelf when relatives came over, even tucking it into my hoodie pocket when we drove to family gatherings. Every time I pressed record, my heart raced, terrified she'd notice. And each time, the results were worse than I imagined. I caught her telling my grandmother that I stole money from her purse, when in reality, I'd spent weeks saving to buy school supplies. I recorded her laughing with a neighbor about how delusional I was for thinking people actually liked me. She even told one family friend I had violent outbursts, which explained the sideways looks I'd been getting for years. Every lie felt like a knife, but now I had a drawer full of blades sharpened with her own words. Still, recording her became an addiction, and addictions make you careless. One afternoon, I left the recorder under the couch after she finished another venomous phone call. My hands were sweaty, my head buzzing from the adrenaline. I told myself I'd grab it later. But when I came back, she was standing in the living room, staring down at the couch cushion she'd just lifted. The recorder sat there in her hand. My stomach dropped. "What's this?" she asked, her voice deceptively calm. I froze in the doorway, every excuse I'd rehearsed vanishing from my mind. My heart slammed so hard I thought it would echo through the walls. She tilted her head, eyes narrowing, a smile tugging at her lips. "Are you spying on me?" For a moment, I couldn't breathe. If she played it, if she realized what I'd captured, everything would be over before it began. But then, her phone rang in the kitchen. She set the recorder down absent-mindedly and walked away. I grabbed it so fast I nearly dropped it, my whole body shaking. That was the night I realized something terrifying. Gathering proof was one thing, but if it ever came to light too soon, she would destroy me before anyone else ever heard it. And deep down, I knew she was capable of it. After she almost caught me with the recorder, paranoia wrapped itself around me like a second skin. Every creak of the floorboards, every sudden pause in her footsteps made my heart race. I started checking my room for hidden cameras, convinced she might turn my own trick against me. I couldn't relax, not at school, not at home, not even in my own bed. The recordings piled up in a shoebox under my mattress, and every night I'd lie awake, staring at the ceiling, terrified she'd somehow discover them. If she did, I knew she wouldn't stop at taking them away. She'd make sure no one ever heard my side of the story again. And then came the family dinner. It was supposed to be a normal Sunday gathering. Relatives laughing, passing dishes, clinking glasses. But I could feel her eyes on me all night, sharp and calculating, as if daring me to challenge her. Halfway through dessert, she cleared her throat. "I think it's time we talk about something important," she said, her voice trembling just enough to seem fragile. Everyone quieted, forks pausing midair. "It breaks my heart," she continued, pressing a tissue to her eyes. "But my daughter has been struggling badly. She lies to me, she lies to herself, and she lies to all of you. I've tried to protect her, but it's getting worse." Gasps around the table. My aunt shook her head sympathetically. My uncle muttered something about kids these days. I opened my mouth to defend myself, but she cut me off, her voice cracking with perfect timing. "Last week, she stole from me again. She even threatened me when I confronted her." Lies. Every single word. But they lapped it up like gospel. I looked around the table, desperate for someone to meet my eyes, to see through the performance. But no one did. My cheeks burned, my throat closed. I wanted to scream that I had proof, hours of it. But if I revealed it too soon, I'd risk everything. So I swallowed the rage, forcing myself to stay silent. And as I sat there, humiliated under their pitying stares, I made a vow. One day, I'd make them hear the truth. I didn't know how yet. But the recordings weren't just my secret anymore. They were my weapon. And soon, I'd use them. That dinner haunted me for weeks. Every time I passed a relative in the hallway at school or saw their comments pop up on social media, I felt their pity like a weight pressing down on me. They believed her. They always believed her. At home, things only got worse. She would corner me in the kitchen, her smile sweet as sugar while she whispered venom in my ear. "You can't fight me. No one will ever believe you. Try, and you'll only look crazier." Gaslighting wasn't enough anymore. She started planting evidence. She left empty bottles in my backpack, claimed she'd found cigarettes in my room, even told the neighbors she'd caught me sneaking out at night. Each lie chipped away at what little credibility I had left. I felt like a prisoner in my own life, surrounded by walls she built with her words. The recordings became my only comfort. Late at night, I'd replay them with headphones on, listening to her voice twisting reality into something unrecognizable. Each file was a reminder. I'm not crazy. This is real. But even that comfort came with fear. Every time I pressed play, I imagined her bursting into my room, ripping the headphones from my ears, finding the shoebox under my bed. I moved it constantly, under the floorboards, inside a hollowed-out textbook, even stashed once in a vent. I lived in constant terror that she'd discover my secret before I was ready. And then it happened. One evening, while I was at a friend's house pretending everything was fine, my phone buzzed. A text from my mother. Interesting collection you've got here. Attached was a photo of my shoebox. Open, the recorder sitting on top, the memory cards scattered like spilled secrets. My whole body went numb. When I walked in that night, she was waiting in the living room, the shoebox on the coffee table between us. She didn't yell. She didn't accuse. She just smiled, her fingers tapping the recorder like a cat pawing at a mouse. "So," she said softly, "you've been busy." She leaned back in her chair, the recorder spinning lazily in her fingers. Her calmness was worse than shouting. It meant she was already 3 steps ahead. "I should be angry," she said lightly, "but honestly, I'm impressed. All this time, and I never noticed. Clever girl." Her tone made my stomach turn. I couldn't tell if she was mocking me or praising me for being a worthy opponent. I forced myself to speak. "You've been lying about me for years. I needed proof." My voice shook, but I didn't look away. Her smile widened, sharp as broken glass. "Proof?" She tapped the recorder against her palm. "Sweetheart, these little clips don't prove anything. Everyone knows you twist things. You could have edited them, cut them, made me sound however you wanted. And when you show them, that's exactly what they'll think." My throat closed. She wasn't just dismissing the evidence. She was preemptively poisoning it. "And besides," she added, leaning closer, "if you play these, what do you think happens next? Do you think your precious relatives will thank you for exposing me? No. They'll see you as cruel, ungrateful, destroying your own mother." She slid the recorder back into the shoebox and pushed it toward me. "Go ahead. Keep them. Collect more if you want. Just remember, darling." She lowered her voice, her smile gone now. "I know where you hide them. I know everything." My hands trembled as I grabbed the box and fled to my room. But I couldn't breathe. Every hiding place suddenly felt unsafe. Every shadow in the hallway, her eyes watching me. That night, I didn't sleep. I sat by the window, clutching the shoebox, replaying her words again and again. She wasn't trying to stop me anymore. She was daring me. And somehow, that was worse. Because if she wasn't afraid of the truth coming out, it meant she had already planned exactly how to bury me when it did. After that night, the air in the house shifted. She didn't scream, didn't lash out. Instead, she grew colder, quieter, more deliberate. It was like living with a snake, coiled and patient, waiting for the perfect time to strike. Her first move was my phone. One morning, I found it missing from my nightstand. When I asked, she shrugged. "You're too distracted lately. I'll hold on to it until you learn some responsibility." I knew what she really meant. She wanted to cut off any chance I had of reaching out for help. Next was school. She began calling my teachers, spinning stories about me being unstable and under too much pressure. Suddenly, every counselor looked at me like a ticking bomb. Every minor slip, a late assignment, a missed answer in class, was treated as proof of her narrative. At home, she tracked everything. Where I went, who I spoke to, even what time I showered. She'd stand in my doorway at night, pretending to check in but really counting the breaths I took, as if waiting for me to confess to some crime I hadn't committed. And through it all, she never mentioned the shoebox. Not once. That silence was worse than threats. I knew she hadn't forgotten. She was letting me stew in fear, second-guessing every move I made. One evening, I overheard her on the phone again, her voice dripping with mock sympathy. "She's been acting out more than ever. I'm worried she might hurt herself one of these days. You know how unpredictable she is." I pressed my hands over my mouth to keep from screaming. She wasn't just lying about me anymore. She was laying the groundwork for something bigger, something that would make it impossible for anyone to ever believe me. That night, staring at the ceiling in the dark, I realized the truth. She wasn't just tightening control. She was building a cage, one designed to make me break so she could finally say, "See? I told you so." And if I didn't act soon, I'd never get out. So I made a choice. The next recording wouldn't stay in the shoebox. It would go to someone else. I couldn't breathe under her watch anymore. Every day felt like a performance where I was cast as the villain in her script. If I didn't break the cycle soon, I knew she'd tighten the noose until I had no way out. So I picked the one person I thought might believe me. Miss Carter, my English teacher. She'd always looked at me differently. Not with pity, not with suspicion, but with a kind of quiet concern. She was the only adult who hadn't completely swallowed my mother's lies. I slipped the recorder into my backpack, my palms sweating the whole bus ride to school. It felt heavier than a brick, like it carried not just evidence, but my entire future. After class, I lingered at her desk. My voice was barely a whisper. "Can I show you something? But you can't tell anyone." She studied me for a moment, then nodded. Of course. We sat in the empty classroom, blinds drawn against the afternoon sun. I pressed play. My mother's voice filled the room, crisp and undeniable. "She lies about everything. She'll say I'm abusive, but don't believe her. She'll do anything for attention." Then another clip, her mocking laugh as she told a neighbor I'd stolen from her. Another, her insisting to my aunt that I was unstable and dangerous. By the time the last recording ended, my hands were shaking so badly I had to grip the edge of the desk to steady myself. For the first time in years, someone else heard the truth. Ms. Carter sat frozen, her face pale. Finally, she looked at me, her eyes blazing with something between anger and pity. "How long has this been going on?" "Years," I whispered. "No one believes me. They all think I'm lying because of her." She was quiet for a long time. Then she said the words I'd been desperate to hear. "I believe you." The relief hit me so hard I almost cried right there. But before I could, she leaned closer, her tone urgent. "You need to be careful. If your mother finds out you've shared these, she'll come after you harder than ever." I nodded, but inside, something shifted. For the first time, I wasn't alone. I had a witness. But as I walked home that evening, recorder tucked deep in my bag, I couldn't shake the feeling that somehow my mother already knew. And when I stepped through the front door, the way she looked at me confirmed it. The moment I stepped inside, I knew something had shifted. She didn't greet me, didn't accuse me, didn't ask about school. She just smiled. A slow, knowing curve of her lips that made my stomach twist. Dinner was waiting on the table, my favorite dish, cooked perfectly. Too perfectly. She poured me a glass of juice, sat across from me, and watched as I ate. Her eyes never left mine. "How was your day?" she asked sweetly. "Fine," I muttered, forcing a bite down. She leaned back in her chair, tapping her nails against the table. "You know, I've been thinking, trust is such a fragile thing. Once it's broken, it's almost impossible to fix." I froze, my fork clattering onto the plate. She tilted her head, her gaze sharp enough to cut through me. "But of course, you wouldn't know anything about breaking trust, would you?" I swallowed hard, my heart pounding. She didn't have proof. She couldn't. Miss Carter wouldn't betray me. Still, her words wrapped around me like chains, pulling tighter with every syllable. Over the next few days, the retaliation grew sharper. She started checking my backpack before I left for school, claiming she was helping me stay organized. She called the school daily, insisting they keep a closer eye on me. My freedom shrank until it was almost nothing. Then came the whispers. She told my relatives I'd been talking to strangers online, that I was spreading dangerous lies. At church, people avoided me like I was contagious. And through it all, she smiled. She never yelled, never accused. She just let her web tighten around me, waiting for me to thrash and prove her right. One night, she sat on the edge of my bed, stroking my hair like I was 5 years old again. "You don't need anyone else," she whispered. "I'm the only one who really loves you. Remember that." Her touch made my skin crawl. I lay there, rigid, my mind racing. She was tightening control not out of love, but fear. She knew I was slipping through her fingers. And I realized something terrifying. If she couldn't destroy my reputation anymore, she might try to destroy me. It started with the broken vase. I came home from school and found the living room in disarray. Shards of glass glittering across the carpet, a lamp knocked over, books scattered like a storm had ripped through. My mother sat on the couch, her face buried in her hands, trembling. When she looked up, her eyes were red, her expression carefully composed into a mask of fear. "Why did you do this?" she whispered. My stomach lurched. "What are you talking about? I just got home." She shook her head slowly, tears spilling down her cheeks. "You screamed at me. You pushed me. You broke things. You don't remember?" Gaslighting, again, but this time bigger, bolder. She was creating a scene for the narrative she'd been weaving for years. Before I could even process it, the doorbell rang. 2 relatives walked in, my aunt and uncle. Their faces tightened as they scanned the wreckage. "She's losing control," my mother said softly, her voice shaking with perfect fragility. "I don't know what to do anymore. I'm scared for my life." I stood frozen, every word slamming into me like a punch. She's lying. I shouted. I didn't do this. I've been at school all day. But their eyes told me everything. They believed her. They always did. I tried to run to my room, to grab my shoebox of recordings, but my aunt blocked the hallway. You need help, she said firmly, as if she were doing me a kindness. That night, locked in my room, I realized the truth. My mother wasn't just planting whispers anymore. She was building a case. She wanted me branded unstable, dangerous. Exactly what she told everyone for years. And she was close to succeeding. I pressed my ear to the wall, listening to her muffled voice on the phone downstairs. Yes, she said softly. I think it's time to involve professionals. She's out of control. A cold shiver ran through me. She wasn't just trying to ruin my reputation anymore. She was trying to erase me. 2 days later, the knock came at the door. I was in my room, clutching the shoebox like a lifeline, when I heard the voices downstairs. Calm, professional, unfamiliar. When I peeked around the corner, 2 women stood in the living room with clipboards, their eyes scanning me the way a vet examines a wounded animal. My mother sat between them, her hands folded, her face the very picture of exhaustion. I don't know what else to do, she said softly, her voice cracking in all the right places. She's a danger to herself. Sometimes, I fear she's a danger to me. The words stabbed through me. My chest went tight. She called mental health services. One of the women gave me a gentle smile. We're here to help, she said. Why don't we talk in your room? My throat closed. If I went with them, if I said the wrong thing, I knew exactly how it would end. A padded room, locked doors, everyone nodding that my mother had been right all along. No, I snapped, louder than I intended. She's lying. She's been lying about me for years. My mother let out a soft sob, her shoulders shaking. You see, this is what I've been dealing with. The paranoia, the rage. She records me, hours of it, obsessed with twisting my words. One of the women scribbled furiously on her clipboard, my vision blurred with panic. She was turning my lifeline into evidence of madness. I wanted to scream, to rip the mask off her face, but I forced myself to breathe. If I exploded now, I'd hand her everything. I have proof, I said instead, my voice trembling but steady enough. Real proof. Do you want to hear it? The women exchanged a glance. My mother stiffened, her eyes narrowing for just a fraction of a second before she forced another sob. Sweetheart, she said softly, warning laced beneath the sweetness. Be careful what you share. You wouldn't want people to think you're manipulating them too. For a moment, silence thickened the air. Then one of the women spoke carefully. We'll need to follow up on this. They left without taking me. But the message was clear. Next time, I might not be so lucky. And as the door shut, my mother's smile slipped back into place. You're playing a dangerous game, she whispered. And you're going to lose. I knew I couldn't keep the recordings hidden forever. The shoebox under my bed had become both a shield and a ticking bomb. Every day I hesitated, my mother's web grew tighter, her story more convincing. If I waited too long, she'd lock me away before I ever had a chance to speak. So I made the riskiest move of my life. At school, I slipped a mess. Carter a flash drive. My hands shook as I pressed it into hers. If anything happens to me, I whispered, play these. All of them. She didn't ask questions. She just nodded, her face grave. I thought that was the end of it, that maybe she'd save them for later, or never use them at all. But 2 nights later, I found out she hadn't waited. I woke to my phone buzzing nonstop. Dozens of missed calls. Hundreds of notifications. When I opened social media, my heart nearly stopped. Someone had uploaded the files. Not just 1 or 2. All of them. The internet was a storm. Comment sections flooded with shock and anger. Clips of my mother's voice spread like wildfire. She lies about everything. She's unstable. Dangerous. If she says I mistreat her, don't believe it. The world was hearing the mask slip. At first, I felt dizzy with relief. Proof. Undeniable, unedited, raw. It was all there, and people believed it. Strangers defended me, called her out, demanded accountability. But my relief didn't last long. Downstairs, I heard the slam of a door. My mother's footsteps pounded up the stairs like gunfire. She burst into my room, her face contorted in a fury I'd never seen before. What did you do? She hissed, her voice low and trembling with rage. Do you have any idea what you've done to me? I opened my mouth to speak, but she grabbed the flash drive from my desk, her nails digging into my skin. You think this makes you safe? She spat. No, this makes you mine. And if you thought I was cruel before. Her grip tightened. You haven't seen anything yet. By morning, the house was a battlefield. Not with fists or screams, but with silence so heavy it pressed down like smoke. My mother didn't speak to me at breakfast. She didn't even look at me. Instead, she scrolled endlessly through her phone, her lips pressed into a thin line as notifications poured in. But the world outside wasn't silent. My phone buzzed nonstop with messages from cousins, classmates, even people I hadn't spoken to in years. I can't believe this. I'm so sorry for ever doubting you. She fooled everyone. You were right all along. We stand with you. For the first time, the tide had turned. People weren't whispering about me anymore. They were whispering about her. At school, the stares were different. No longer suspicious, no longer pitying. Some were apologetic, others just shocked. Teachers who once dismissed me avoided my gaze, ashamed. But my mother wasn't going down quietly. That night, the phone rang off the hook. Relatives called, furious and confused. Some demanded explanations, others defended her. I heard my aunt's voice shouting through the speaker. This has to be fake. She'd never say those things. My mother wept dramatically into the phone, spinning news stories. She edited everything. You know how manipulative she is. She wants to destroy me. Gaslighting, still, but now in the open, flailing against a truth she couldn't control. The cracks spread fast. Some relatives cut her off immediately, horrified. Others clung to her lies, desperate not to admit they'd been fooled for years. The family split down the middle, and I became both the villain and the survivor, depending on who you asked. But beneath the noise, one thing terrified me most. The way my mother watched me when no one else was around. No tears, no pleading, just cold, calculating eyes that promised payback. And when I went to bed that night, I found a note slipped under my door, written in her perfect handwriting. You may have won them, but you'll never win me. Sleep with one eye open. The Sunday after the recordings leaked, my mother put on her best dress. Her hair was perfect, her makeup flawless, every detail polished like she was preparing for a stage performance. We're going to church, she announced flatly, as if nothing had happened. I wanted to refuse, but her glare left no room for argument. So I sat beside her in the pews, my stomach churning, as she rose when the pastor asked if anyone had something on their heart to share. She walked to the front like a saint, clutching a tissue in her hand, her voice trembling just enough to break. My child, she began, her eyes sweeping the congregation. She's been struggling. The things you've heard online, the things she spread, they're not true. They're cries for help. Gasps rippled through the room. Whispers followed, eyes darting toward me where I sat frozen, heat rising in my face. She twisted my words. My mother continued, dabbing her eyes. You all know me. I've only ever loved her, protected her, sacrificed for her. And now she's punishing me for it. Please, her voice cracked perfectly. Pray for her. She's sick. She doesn't know what she's doing. The congregation erupted in murmurs, heads shaking, some eyes softening with pity, not for me, but for her. She'd stolen the narrative back with one flawless performance. I wanted to scream, to stand and shout that she was lying, that the recordings were real, that every word was the truth. But as I opened my mouth, I caught sight of my classmates in the crowd, phones already out, recording. She wasn't just defending herself. She was turning this into a spectacle, one final act to reclaim her mask of martyrdom. The pastor laid a hand on her shoulder, guiding her to sit, his voice solemn. Let us pray for this family. And as heads bowed around me, my mother's eyes flicked toward mine, sharp and triumphant, like a dagger hidden behind tears. It felt like she'd won. Until I checked my phone. A new notification flashed across the screen. Local news picks up leaked recording scandal. The story had gone bigger than the family, bigger than the church. And for the first time, I saw fear flicker in her eyes. The news spread faster than either of us could keep up with. By Monday morning, it wasn't just whispers in the family or gossip at church. It was headlines, podcasts, videos dissecting every second of the recordings. People heard her voice in her own words, dripping with venom, and they didn't need me to explain anymore. She tried to fight it. She posted long messages online, claiming everything was doctored and maliciously edited. She sobbed on live streams, begging for sympathy. But the more she spoke, the worse it got. Strangers dug deeper, finding inconsistencies in her stories. Old friends chimed in, recalling little red flags they'd ignored for years. The tipping point came when a local news station invited us both for an interview. She agreed immediately, confident she could outmaneuver me in front of cameras. I wanted to run, to hide, but Ms. Carter urged me to go. "This is your chance," she said. "The world is finally listening." Sitting under those bright studio lights, my hands shook, but my voice didn't. "She lied about me for years," I said, staring straight into the camera. "She told everyone I was unstable, dangerous, a liar. But the truth is in her own words, and you've all heard them now. I don't have to explain. She already did." For the first time, my mother's composure cracked. "You see," she snapped, her mask slipping. "Manipulative. Twisting everything to make me the villain." The host didn't flinch. They simply pressed play. One of the recordings, her voice filling the studio, cold and cruel. "She lies about everything. If she says I mistreat her, don't believe it." Silence followed. My mother's face drained of color. The cameras caught it, the twitch of panic, the sudden stillness, the unmistakable moment her carefully crafted mask shattered in front of everyone. That was the moment the world saw her the way I always had. Afterward, she stormed off the set, shouting that she was the victim, but no one believed her anymore. Not after hearing the truth for themselves. For me, it wasn't triumph I felt, not really. It was release. A weight I'd carried my whole life lifted, leaving scars, but also space to breathe. I walked out of that studio into the sunlight, the noise of the world buzzing around me. And for the first time, I wasn't her shadow, her puppet, or her scapegoat. I was free.